This is the Shiftheads podcast with Shane Hewitt and friends.
Welcome to the Shiftheads podcast. I'm Shane Hewitt. Steve Stebbing is here. Before we get to what the hell should I watch, Steve, how you doing, bud? What's going on in the land of Penticton?
Yeah, doing okay. You know, it's February, so we're still trying to get things rolling. You know, it doesn't feel like 2024 has really started yet.
When does Penticton start to get busy? Because it is such a tourist town.
It really doesn't start hitting like May long.
May long, yeah.
May long is kind of the start of it, because even like spring break, depending on where your kids go to school, it could be March or April for spring break. Still, like, why? There's not really great reasons to come out here.
Great reasons. Steve Stebbing
during the winter or the spring, really, as we're getting stuff going. But
I think you're a great reason to go. But that's it. A movie theater in Penticton, maybe that's another one. The popcorn, I don't know.
Yeah,
I have two particular things, maybe three. I don't know. I watched a couple of your shows.
Okay.
First of all, I want to talk about Barbie.
Okay.
I watched Barbie. It's on streaming now. You can go get it on your streaming services. And I think I figured out why everybody loves this movie.
Right.
I also figured out why Will Ferrell didn't do Elf Part 2. Barbie is Elf 2.
In a slight way, yeah. In a slight way, yeah. I mean, because you do have a character going out of their element in a world that they know very well, into a world that they don't understand at all, but they still have that same precocious innocence to them as well that is hard to kill.
Turns out that they belonged there all along. And they did belong as much as they didn't want to, even if they wanted to take on new things. So it literally is Elf Part 2. So
exactly,
if you like Elf, you'll like Barbie.
Yeah, you just don't have because the only difference being that Buddy was born as a human.
Yeah, that would be a difference, right? Is that Barbie was not born as a human.
No,
not to spoil the movie.
She was an arch-footed woman.
Yes, not a flat-footed woman. You'll see that. Okay, I also went to the movie theater for the first time in forever.
Nice.
And, I did. I went and saw Argylle.
I mean, it's a movie that I'm going to dig into at the beginning of my video that follows here, but I can say, like, I'm super pumped, like, friend to friend, that you went to a movie in the theaters. Like, I'm super pumped for that fact. I'm sorry that it was Argylle.
Yeah, I enjoyed the movie because of the Kingsman stuff. Like
yeah.
Like, so I did like that, and I like the play on all the things. But why is it every movie these days out of Hollywood has to have some sort of environmental agenda? Like the bad guy's on an oil tanker, and it's crude oil spilling all over the place. Like it's a decently entertaining, silly, playful show, and then at the end of it, the bad guy lives on an oil tanker, and then that's how the bad guys live, because all bad guys are oil. And I'm like, you just took a perfectly entertaining, silly little movie and turned it into some sort of statement again. And I'm really getting tired of movies making statements always.
But the statement is completely muddied, though, because they don't make a big deal about it. It's almost confusing when all of a sudden there's oil pouring out everywhere. Like it's not even, it's a complete waste, because it's not even a piece of the story, really. Like it doesn't even, it leads to one of the most ridiculous parts of the movie that any sane person would be like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah.
Because the moment that happens right after it is just too much to even handle, involving Bryce Dallas Howard, who I love. I adore her, and she's gorgeous, and I really love that they gave her a main role, because she doesn't really get those that often. Like, we're talking maybe Jurassic World that she is, but Chris Pratt's the main of that one. She's the main character of this movie. And
I didn't mind the skating because that was the silly part. But I mean, it just, I think it was a Canadian, I don't know if it was a Canadian thing. I was bothered by this reckless thing. I mean, when you look at movies that have had big statements in the past, there's a lot of, like, you can even get into any of the war movies, like Good Morning Vietnam, and all those, while they didn't come out during those particular wars, they had a very clear statement about those wars. And like that's okay, but it just to associate bad guys on an oil tanker, I just found was reckless and silly and frankly low picked fruit and not even appropriate or accurate for that matter.
This was like the messiest sandwich ever made, and then they just kept trying to jam stuff in it at the end, and it was like, this doesn't even taste good.
No. Now, that being said, I
Mhm.
can appreciate the premise of it. You'll talk about more of that coming up.
Yep.
And the Oppenheimer is coming out on streaming too here in a week or two. I looked it up,
Yep.
and apparently I think it's the 23rd or something like that, somewhere around there, that it's coming out. Should people watch that on streaming? It's like 3 hours long.
Yes.
Yeah.
I easily. I mean, beyond the fact that it's nominated for, I think, 10 Academy Awards, it's just a damn good film. Like thoroughly a damn good film, and it'd probably be easier to digest if it's now on streaming. You can pause and walk around, stretch your legs and everything. But I mean, if you care about movies, then yeah, you should check out Oppenheimer.
Is it as good as Argylle?
No, it's better.
There it is. All right. Highlights of what you've got coming up for us here, and what the hell should we watch?
Yeah, this week on What the Hell Should I Watch? I finally get to talk about The Promised Land, a movie that I brought to the Shift when we were talking about Vancouver International Film Festival. This one with Mads Mikkelsen. Now it's going to be in theaters for everybody to check out, as well as a new Canadian film by Molly McGlynn. It's released by Telefilm Canada, and usually you're just kind of like we have to celebrate Canadian, but is it worth celebrating? Yeah, this one's worth celebrating for sure. Also, there are two brand new Criterion Collection films, including one of my favorite films of all time, Trainspotting, in a brand new 4K release. Yeah, I get really nerdy about this one.
Yeah. And if you want, it's not the same train spotting that you see online with the Francis Bourgeois guy who does train spotting these days, the delightful guy that he is. Okay. What the hell should I watch? SteveStebbing.ca, ShaneHewitt.ca, Shiftheads.ca. And don't forget, go to Steve's channel. It'll be in the description here if this is where you're hearing it. And on this very channel too, there are benchmarks we have to hit before anybody, earns anything with this. Like and subscribe, share it with your friends, ask your friends to subscribe too. That makes all the difference for us. So many people have said, what can we do to help? You know what you can do? You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's the way to go. Okay, Steve Stebbing, you ready to roll it?
Ready to rock it. Let's do this. Hello, everybody, and welcome to What the Hell Should I Watch? I'm Steve Stebbing. Thank you for checking out this video. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe down below. And, maybe share it with a friend or share it with all your friends or share it on your social media. Again, thank you for checking this week's episode out. Got a bunch of stuff to talk about, including the previously teased Argylle, Matthew Vaughn's new film, which will eventually be debuting on Apple TV Plus anyway. So do you need to check it out in theaters? I'm about to dig into that right now. All right, so Argylle. I was looking forward to this film, not because that there was a Taylor Swift conspiracy theory that she may or may not have been Ellie Conway, the writer of the novel that this was adapted from, which hadn't been released as far as the movie had been released, and played by Bryce Dallas Howard in the movie. I will tell you right now, without doing any spoilers at all, this is not Taylor Swift's movie. She would probably be grateful it wasn't her movie as well. We'll get into that in a second. But according to my wife and my wife's friend, and I saw a bit of it as well, it definitely is Taylor Swift coded, and they definitely leaned into it because they wanted those Swiftie numbers. I mean, it made the Eras movie over $100 million in theaters, so why not try the same for Argylle? Did it work after the first weekend? It did not really work. It got them about $19 million.
Oh my God. I am never going to financially recover from this.
But the cast is seriously good in this one. Besides Bryce Dallas Howard, you have Sam Rockwell, Bryan Cranston's in this, Catherine O'Hara, Henry Cavill, John Cena. Dua Lipa, although very, 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 very briefly, Samuel L. Jackson, and it's Matthew Vaughn. So it's the same guy that did Kick-Ass, the same guy that did all of the Kingsman movies. But unfortunately, this leans towards the third movie in that series, The King's Man. And this movie is not even close to being The King's Man's caliber of film, which is a film that I didn't really like that much anyway. So you can kind of gauge where I felt about Argylle, because it just isn't. It's colorful, it's goofy, it may be entertaining, but is it good? No, it's not good. It's quite the opposite. It's quite a mess. And it's really hard to try to give this movie positive marks. Sam Rockwell, charming as always. The guy always finds an opportunity to start grooving, and you kind of love that about the dude. Bryce Dallas Howard, beautiful as always. I have such a soft spot for her. I really adore her. I like that she's directing episodes in the Star Wars universe television. To see her get a lead role in a movie, I mean, years removed from Jurassic World, I thought was pretty cool. I also thought it's weird that they released this movie into IMAX theaters. I mean, not in the area I am, but in the bigger, more populated, bigger cities. You can see Argylle in IMAX, and I don't know if it really deserves that elevation. Nor do I think it deserves the stinger that they put on the end of this film. And I won't get into any spoilers here, but they give a spoiler that sets up like 3 other movies, including a new Kingsman movie, which this movie is in the universe of. And I don't think it's going to earn that spot of getting a new Argylle movie, maybe a new Kingsman movie, but a new Argylle movie, I highly, highly doubt that. And the reason I highly doubt that is the CG's terrible, the script is bad, and the script is so bad that it even makes Bryan Cranston and Samuel L. Jackson not very good in this movie at all. And my other confusion, if we're throwing this into the same universe of the Kingsman, doesn't Samuel L. Jackson already reside in that universe and had his head blown off? I'm pretty sure that's what happened. Up next is The Promised Land. I believe this is an Academy Award nominated film in the Best Foreign category. This comes from director Nicolas Arcel and actor Mads Mikkelsen. This is another team up after their movie Riders of Justice, which is a phenomenal film that came out a few years ago that I absolutely loved. I got to see this one at the Vancouver International Film Festival in October, and now it's getting its limited to wide release here in 2024. And basically, Mads Mikkelsen plays a man that is basically trying to make his nobility in Denmark in the 1800s, and is given a patch of land that basically is unworkable. You cannot get soil to take any sort of plant. There's just so much foliage and everything that's choking out the land, and it's basically a fool's errand that they send him on. So he starts to see some headway, which in turn angers a nobleman in the area who basically starts a vendetta with him. And if you know Mads Mikkelsen and all the characters he's played, why would you mess with Mads ever? Seriously, even when he was a drunk teacher in Another Round, I still wouldn't mess with him. He'd still probably kick my ass. So like, I don't know. This guy's got balls. But honestly, the actor, his name is Simon Benebjerg. I'm probably butchering that horribly. Almost steals the show. He is this aristocratic and ruthless a-hole that is clearly driven by ego and the mechanizations of that, and will take it to whatever extent he can to snuff out Mads Mikkelsen's plight to make fertile soil and to make an encampment and thus a village and a town and whatnot. Just beautifully done. As soon as the movie starts, the name splashes across the screen in Danish, and it's called, not The Promised Land, it's called Bastarden. And I really like that. I'm like, damn, American audiences, we should have just kept this title as Bastarden And you could have heard that read out at the Academy Awards. Now up for Best Foreign Film, Bastarden. And it even wipes across the screen like in a way like Evil Dead Rise did. Last year, which was like probably my favorite title card of the year. This rivaled it for sure. And now that it's released in 2024, it may become one of my favorite title cards of this year, just because, well, I'll just go off the real release and not the festival release that I saw. In the end, I do think it's one of the best films that I saw at VIFF last year, and I think it's a really solid pick to check out in theaters this year, especially in theaters, because the cinema scope of this one really demands to be seen in theaters. All right, next up is Fitting In. This is a Canadian film starring Maddie Ziegler, and it was written and directed by Molly McGlynn, director that's mostly known for doing TV, but she had a previous film probably, I want to say about 5-6 years ago. I probably are really wrong on this timeline, called Merry-Go-Round, and it featured Aya Cash, who was in Josh Rubin's film Scare Me, and she was also a very pivotal and brutal role in The Boys. She played the Stormfront.
Nazi Stormfront, Hitler star, run her over with a car.
It's catchy.
And the reveal on her is just crazy. But I really, really like Aya Cash, so it makes this movie in how well of an effect that Fitting In made on me makes me want to go back and watch Merry-Go-Round. But this is a really good movie for Maddie Ziegler, because I think it makes us forget that she was in a movie with Kate Hudson called Music that was directed by Sia that got a lot of Golden Globes love at the beginning of that year, which I want to say it's 2021 maybe. And then just it basically was a really bad take on autism that none of us got to see, because basically the backlash ended up forcing Universal to cancel out any of its release. So I'm not even sure if it was released in any format, streaming, physical format, or in theaters at all, because I never saw this movie. But anyway, Maddie Ziegler has moved on to this film. It's a teen kind of coming of age comedy in which Ziegler is a sexual teen, as we all were.
Now then, what's the date of your last period?
I haven't gotten it yet.
Who, in discovering her own sexuality, discovers something that separates her from everyone else that she knows and everyone that she's ever known, and brings into question the sexual differences, things physically about our bodies.
I'm pissed and sad I can't have a kid. I'm pissed I can't complain about my period.
And how they're perceived, and how you can accept them and move into your life with this knowledge. And it's a very important message and an important story to be told. I think maybe the execution was a little lacking. I think the writing for the teens felt a little forced, and it did feel a little bit like an adult writing for kids. But I think largely it still works. Ziegler is so endearing in this film, as is her mom, played by Emily Hampshire, who Schitt's Creek fans will know as Stevie from that show. She is really great in this one, and kind of un-Stevie like they are able to separate, like she's able to separate and become her own character, especially for all of those people that are kind of ingrained with watching all those seasons of Schitt's Creek. When you see her, you kind of have that thought in your mind, but it is kind of dispelled pretty regularly. I mean, this is she's Canadian cinema royalty in my personal opinion. For me, it goes back to 2006 with Snowcake, a film that takes place in Wawa, Manitoba, with Sigourney Weaver and Sir Alan Rickman. How we miss that guy. Every time I see him in something, I miss him, but I digress. I think as far as a Canadian comedy, coming of age comedy, that this film hits all of the notes that it should, plus giving you some food for thought to kind of chew on afterwards, if we're talking about sexual awareness, or being able to bridge that gap between parents and child to talk about these things and make our kids feel safer and everything. I think that this movie opens up that conversation beautifully, and Molly McGlynn did a really solid job with this. I just wish the story and the script were tightened up just a little bit, but doesn't make it a bad movie by any means. It's actually a pretty damn good movie. All right, so this weekend I took in kind of a weird one. It's called Out of Darkness. I don't think a lot of people are going to check this one out, but Bleecker Street was the producing studio on it, so it's not like it's a low budget film, but it was done. It's a Scottish film done also through the British Film Institute, and it was done by a writer and director named Andrew Fleming. And it's a really interesting one because it takes place in the Stone Age of, I think they're saying 45,000 years ago, and basically it's about a group of, essentially cave people that row up on land where they think that they can start their new lives here. And as nightfall hits, they start to realize quickly that they are not alone. And this film loves to languish in campfire scenes where you've got the glow of the campfire illuminating your characters and then just kind of darkness everywhere. And it does it in such a great way where you kind of feel the claustrophobia of it. Plus, there's a really great score and sound design to keep you immersed in everything. Then as people start getting picked off one by one, the mystery kind of deepens. I will say that the third act leaves me a little bit in the middle. Like, I can understand why they went with this ending over other elements, but at the same time, I was wishing that they would play with some of these other elements. Like, is this story more straightforward and human based, or is it supernatural? Are there monsters involved? Like, there are a lot of questions that come through. Was I satisfied by the third act of it? I'm not entirely sure about that. There is also some really good, just one really cool kind of gory body horror like sequence that I thought was really, really well done and effective, and haven't seen something done quite like it. But it wasn't enough to elevate it to like kind of superstardom. It just kind of makes it a good movie, a movie that's worth watching, but nothing that you're going to feel any sort of FOMO when someone is talking about it. Next up is a character drama with a little bit of thriller aspect to it, called Marmalade. And this is written and directed by Keir O'Donnell. Keir would probably most be known as the arty, recluse brother in Wedding Crashers.
I'm not perfect, but who are we kidding? Neither are you. And you want to know what? I dig it.
Jeremy tried to seduce me!
You did?
I want my painting back.
The painting was a gift, Todd. I'm taking it with me.
Or the bad guy in Paul Blart Mall Cop. Like, those are probably his two biggest blockbuster releases, I would say. But he was also recently in Michael Bay's Ambulance, and I saw him in the Australian film The Dry with Eric Bana, and that's actually where I found out the guy's actually Australian. I had no idea until that film. But he makes his debut with this film, and he's got some good cast here because he has Joe Keery in the lead role, playing a very simple, almost borderline dumb character who works at the post office and then spends his time caring for his ailing mother. One day his life is disrupted by this manic pixie dream girl played by Camille Maroney, who is known as playing Camille in Daisy Jones and the Six, which is not a good show by any stretch of the imagination. But as soon as I saw her on screen, I mean, in this film she has like a strawberry pink hair in it, so definitely a long cry from the dark brunette that she was in Daisy Jones, but I recognized her face pretty quickly. Hawkman himself, Aldous Hodge, is in this film as well. And basically this is about a guy that Joe Keery basically is in jail.
Let's rob a bank.
Do what now?
And recounting his story of why he's in jail to his cellmate, played by Aldous Hodge. And it's kind of like driven by the storyteller. And Kiri's really great in this role. Like I've adored him since Stranger Things, but then we've gotten Spree, Free Guy, and a few other films after it that I really think that's kind of sharpened his skills beyond being Steve. And this is another one that he just gets to sink his teeth into and have a little bit of fun with. And Kier makes this movie pretty stylish. Like there's some great overhead shots. There's some great, just kind of perspective things that feel fresh and feel new. And that's because he's working with cinematographer Polly Morgan, who I really, really like her work as well. She shot 9 of Noah Hawley's Legion episodes with Dan Stevens, which is a really, really solid show. She also shot A Quiet Place Part 2 for John Krasinski.
We're married.
And Woman King for Gina Prince Bythewood. And she is just such a solid cinematographer. I kind of put her up with another cinematographer that I'll talk about in a second here, Rachel Morrison. They both deliver such interesting work, and I'd kind of like to see her slide into the director's chair at one time, because I think she would do a really great job. Again, this movie is not going to be something that's going to blow you away or anything that you're going to want that everybody needs to see, but if you're looking for a good comedy, drama, thriller, mystery, Marmalade might be up your alley. But again, like Out of the Darkness, I'm still trying to gauge whether I like the ending on this movie. Does it work? Does it not work? I don't know. There's just something about it that I feel it's one of those things where a reveal happens and it makes you question everything that came before it. And now I just need to figure out if it all lines up correctly, because there might be some plot holes hidden in here. All right, so new on Criterion, came out last week, but I finally got a chance to check it out because it still exists on Netflix. The 2017 Dee Rees film Mudbound. This is her second feature film, and I definitely slept on this movie. Like, I don't understand why I missed out on this. It's kind of like when One Night in Miami came out on Criterion. I hadn't seen it yet, so I finally did once I got the disc. That's kind of the same thing with this one. And I mean, it was an Academy Award nominated film in many regards. I believe it got 4 Oscar nominations: supporting actress for Mary J. Blige, adapted script, cinematography, and original song, which was by Raphael Sadiq, Mary J. Blige. Tara Stinson was also a writer, and it was called Mighty River. So yeah, it got 4 nominations. Still didn't check it out. And I like the cast in it. I mean, Jason Clarke's in this one, Carey Mulligan. Always great to see Carey Mulligan and stuff. Garrett Hedlund, who is phenomenal in this movie. Jason Mitchell, who was really good in this movie as well. People may know him from playing Eazy-E in Straight Outta Compton. Rob Morgan, who is a character actor who has appeared in a lot of different things. He is the best piece in this film, like my favorite piece in this one, playing Hap. Just such a brilliant performance. And Jonathan Banks from Breaking Bad is in this one. And of course, Mary J is in this one. And everyone is so phenomenal in this one. Dee Rees does such an incredible job. But basically, this is a story that takes place in the South, in Mississippi, during and bit after World War II, and dealing with Jason Clarke's character, who basically moves his entire family out to a small spit of land to try and make his legacy there. But he's a little bit dim-witted, gets swindled pretty badly immediately, setting his family on almost a crash course with failure. Then Garrett Hedlund comes back from the war, which is his brother, definitely suffering from some demons there. Jason Mitchell's character comes back from the war, who is the son, the oldest son of a black family that has their own farm next to theirs.
What the hell's going on? Oh, hey, Randy. What do you think of the new place?
And yeah, this one I mean, clearly deals with race and the brutality of that and everything. Plus, the difference of that when Jason Mitchell's character is overseas and he's like celebrated in Europe as a hero, and then once that hero, the hero tarnish fades as soon as he gets back into America. And
all that time he was gone, I only prayed for him.
Over there, I was a liberator. People lined up in the streets waiting for us.
Sometimes I actually miss it.
Yeah, me too.
I'm coming back from the fire.
It's just such an interesting, it's just an interesting story to be told in something that we've seen a lot of in movies, but to be more focused for this one, I thought was really, really well done. Shot by an incredible cinematographer, Rachel Morrison. A lot of people know her work from Black Panther, Fruitvale Station. But I mean, she also did Dope for Rick Fukunaga, and I'm probably Fukuyama, Rick Fukuyama. I'm going to keep saying that name over and over. I'll stop now. But Dope is such a dope movie, and the vision of it is a lot of reason why I love that movie. But she also did Sound of My Voice, which is a little indie film from the early 2010s that I absolutely love. Such a great film. So it's cool to see Rachel Morrison get another sweeping film that got her Academy Award nominated again, because I think this would have came after the nomination for Black Panther, because I'm pretty sure she was nominated for that as well. But I honestly think it's a very important film. Like Roma, like The Irishman, it is a prestige cinema spot on Netflix that has made its way to Criterion. So if you're a film buff like I'm a film buff, you're going to want to own this on Criterion Blu-ray. But if not, it's still available to watch on Netflix now. Since we're talking about Mudbound, which came out last week on Blu-ray, I also wanted to make a quick mention that Thanksgiving is available on Blu-ray from Sony Studios. Great film from Eli Roth, realizing his little trailer that it played during Grindhouse into a big feature. I covered it on this show a few weeks back. Also the same with Silent Night. That is on Blu-ray from Lionsgate Entertainment. Joel Kinnaman in a largely pretty much fully dialogue-less action movie that's set at Christmas time in all that John Woo fashion. And it doesn't translate well from being a Chinese director to an American film. I just will say that. Also, Eileen is out on Blu-ray. It's the new film from William Oldroyd, who did Lady Macbeth. This one stars Thomasin McKenzie, a very sexually charged thriller mystery. Again, all these films I covered on episodes of What the Hell Should We Watch. Just kind of go back in the video list and look for the hashtags. You'll find which episode I talked about it on. So let's hit up another Criterion film, and this one's really special because it just so happens to be one of my favorite films of all time, as Danny Boyle's Trainspotting is now a Criterion film, spine number 1204. Yeah, it is a brand new addition to the collection, but such a well-deserving one because we do already have a Danny Boyle film in the Criterion collection because Shallow Grave is there. So are we going in a bit of a chronological order in celebrating Danny Boyle Criterion? Like, is The Beach going to be Criterion next? I'd be okay with actually. I really like The Beach as well. But Trainspotting is a number one. I love Trainspotting 2 as well. So I know there's people out there that didn't really get that one, but I really dug it. But I mean, this cast in this original movie, you have a young Ewan McGregor, you have young Robert Carlyle.
Just leave him! I see him! Leave him! Dawn! Help us!
young Johnny Lee Miller. I mean, this is around the Hackers time, so I was already pretty much in love with Zero Cool, his character name in Hackers. But Kelly MacDonald is in this one. Kevin McKidd, long before he ever stepped into the halls of Seattle Grace Hospital to play Sandra Oh's love interest eventually and do that horrible musical episode. There's so much greatness about this movie. I mean, it's Danny Boyle, probably one of his crowning achievements cinematically, in my personal opinion. It's shot incredibly by Brian Tufano, who is just a legendary cinematographer. I mean, mostly he probably got celebrated a lot for Billy Elliot. For me, I knew his work at a young age because he did The Who's Quadrophenia. But he also did Shallow Grave for Danny Boyle, as well as, what was the other one? Lifeless Ordinary. So he did a lot of Boyle's early stuff. Actually, that would be the next one that would be Criterion if we were going in order. It would be Lifeless Ordinary, not The Beach. Lifeless Ordinary is a little less deserving of a Criterion, in my opinion. I still like the film, but it's a little less deserving. I think there's probably a lot of people like, what is that movie? A Lifeless Ordinary? Ewan McGregor, Cameron Diaz, Angels. Check it out. But visually, Trainspotting is one of the most unforgettable films that was a big kicking to me in loving cinema. Like, this came out in the mid 90s and rocked my world. The baby crawling on the ceiling, him sinking into the carpet after he took a hit of heroin, coming out of the toilet, swimming in the toilet looking for his pills. Like, just like so much great things. Begbie throwing the stein over his head and smashing on that woman's head down below. Like, there's just so much great visual flair to this film that makes it just ingrained in my brain forever, and coupled with an incredible soundtrack that features Lust for Life by Iggy Pop and Born Slippy by Underworld. All of this stuff is also examined on featurettes on this Criterion Collection edition. And I will say, though, like, this is a digipack edition. It's very cardboardy, like kind of folds into each other. It feels really flimsy and cheap when it comes to Criterion and what we're used to out of them. I don't know if there's other versions, but the one I got just felt flimsy. I still get the cool collectible book in it, and I really love that stuff. And at the heart of it all, it's got the movie in it, so that's all I care about. But I don't know why a film as celebrated as this had such, like, almost a phoned in packaging to it. I just don't get it. I will also say the cool thing about this, because this is the brainchild of many different people. I mean, Danny Boyle is at the head of it. It's an adaptation of the great work of Irvine Welsh done through the conduit of John Hodge as the writer. I mean, Ewan is a big driving factor on this one, and it's really cool. There's a full, thorough commentary on this one with Boyle, Hodge, Ewan McGregor, as well as producer Andrew McDonald. So great insight into the making of this film, but as well as the legacy and coming at this one years after and giving your thoughts on it, I think is very fascinating. So one of my favorite movies of all time is now Criterion, and easily available for anyone to pick up. And if you're a movie fan, you just have to buy this movie. All right, so one of the movies that were coming out on DVD this week is called Dark Cloud. It's a very low-budget sci-fi paranoid thriller. But if you don't want to go out and get the DVD, you can stream it for free on Tubi with commercials and everything. No big actors in this one. No, it was directed by a guy named Jay Ness, who I don't really know any work from him at all. And basically, it's about a woman being sent to rehab, but they're doing experimental rehab this time and putting her in a fully AI-operated house. Sad thing is that house, like, becomes infatuated with her, falls in love with her, and then basically tries to keep her and kill anybody else that tries to get inside. And sadly, I thought that this would be an interesting story, but sadly, it is just as basic as that. It is filmed pretty flatly. Even the one like kill scene in this, they did it in such a way that just kind of deters from anything interesting. Like that was supposed to be your crescendo in this slow burn movie, and it doesn't work. It just all falls flat. Nothing's scary. Nothing's that thrilling, and I just kind of felt the whole thing was lame by the end. I kind of felt like had wasted my time. I don't know really why I watched it besides the AI paranoia in it and the fact that it's such a hot button issue. I was like, well, maybe I've seen something like this before, because I think Pierce Brosnan did a film, IT, which was about a fully automated AI house. But again, like this film feels like been there, done that. And it feels like maybe they should have done this story at the cusp of the artificial intelligence rage. Not like, I feel like we're in the 7th inning right now of AI discovery. So it feels like the wrong time to do this one. Let's get to some geek outs this week. 2 of them are going to be from Warner Archive, sent to me through the lovely people at moviezing.com. And the first one is a Kenneth Branagh Shakespeare movie. Like, a big portion of his career is Shakespeare. So this one's really interesting, though, because it's not an actual adaptation of his work, of Shakespeare's story, but about a bunch of actors coming together because they're going to be making Hamlet. And the film is called A Midwinter's Tale. And it's very interesting that he made this film at the time, because this was made in 1995. In 1996, he would make Hamlet, the Mel Gibson Hamlet, before the sugar tits time of Mel Gibson, when we were still accepting of him playing Hamlet. I don't know if we were accepting of him playing Hamlet at the time. I'm talking out my butt, but he hadn't called anyone sugar tits that we know of that time. So he was winning in our minds. And this was just after Braveheart too. So he was still kind of William Wallace hero-y in our minds, at least to my young, impressionable mind at the time. But, sugar tits and all. But this is really interesting because it's a great mix of the reality of the time plus being an actual film about actual actors and everything, because the conduit for this film is that a character named for Kenneth Branagh is a character named Joe Harper. He's played by Michael Maloney in this one, but he's basically who Branagh's representation is in this film. And it's funny because he keeps talking about that he turned down a big sci-fi trilogy so that he could come in and get back to his roots and do Hamlet and get in touch with what made him love being an actor, which is really funny because Kenneth Branagh was offered the role of a young Obi-Wan Kenobi before Ewan McGregor was offered it. He turned it down. So this is kind of like reality and art meeting up just in that nerdy sense. So I thought that was kind of funny. And it's interesting to know that Kenneth Branagh paid for this movie to be made all out of his own pocket, all using the profit made from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the film that he did previously in 1994 with Robert De Niro himself and Emma Thompson, Helena Bonham Carter. I think it was Helena Bonham Carter. I haven't seen that movie in a long time. I should give it a rewatch because I know it was critically panned at the time, but it might have aged okay. I know the makeup of De Niro is pretty cool. At the head of it, Midwinter's Tale is a movie buff's film through and through. Like, it's largely a lot of talking, a lot of actors being grandiose and big. But I mean, these are some of the big actors and stuff. Like John Sessions is in this one. Like it's all of those character actors that you've seen in British stuff since the late 80s, in prominent roles this time, and all recognizable faces. And hopefully you can go through the cast after and finally, for once and for all, put some faces to these names because they really deserve it. Also, it's all done in black and white, which, as far as cinema fans go, it's kind of a sweet spot for us sometimes. That black and white just hits well. I mean, I just watched Poor Things recently, and I really loved the black and white work in that one too. So, and all of that said, I really, really dig when Brana does Shakespeare. It always comes through well. Probably because I was ingrained with this from a young age, because my dad rented the Much Ado About Nothing that Brana did in the early 90s. He rented it on VHS, and I ended up watching it with him when I was a kid. And I mean, I really loved that one. So every time that I saw Brana had another Shakespeare one, I dug into it right away. And I mean, The Conduit's pretty good with Much Ado, because you got Denzel, you got Michael Keaton, and I believe Keanu Reeves is in that one too. I feel like Keanu Reeves is in that movie. I may be wrong. But anyway, Warner Archive has another Brana Shakespeare for you to check out. Next up is Saving Grace. This is a fun one. Came from 2000. It's an Irish comedy. And when I was working at the video store back in the day, I used to recommend this to people so much. Like, if you were over 40 and wanted like a solid drama, solid comedy drama, you were getting a copy of Saving Grace put into your hot little hand. And now that I have on Blu-ray, I am so tickled by this, because it has 2-time Academy Award nominee Brenda Blethyn in the lead role, opposite Craig Ferguson, who is he is the greatest late night television host to have a skeleton as a co-host. He's the greatest to ever do it. I can't think of anybody else that would take that mantle away from him. He's the best. He's the best to do it. He also co-wrote this movie as well, which makes me adore him that much more. Craigie Ferg is the best, and I miss him on television, if we're being completely honest. Basically, this movie follows Brenda Blethyn as a woman who's dealing with the suicide of her husband and the possible loss of her farm unless she finds something new to harvest to bring the money back to the farm. So with her groundskeeper, played by Craig Ferguson, she finds that cannabis might be the best way to get the bankroll going again. And so the two look to get their farm restarted in this sense. And it's such a beautifully done film, a real crowd pleaser that keeps a smile on your face the entire film. And Nigel Cole, the director of this film, he kind of specializes in those type of films, because he also did Calendar Girls, Made in Dagenham, and did some American films as well, a lot like Love with Amanda Peet and Ashton Kutcher, as well as $5 a Day with Jason Lee, and Christopher Walken is in that one too. Just a really, really fun movie. Oh, and Sharon Stone's in that movie. That's a really great one. The American films weren't as well received as the British ones, but I own A Lot Like Love, and I still really like that movie. And I thought $5 a Day was great. So Saving Grace is kind of sandwiched right around that. Saving Grace is kind of the starting point, and then comes Calendar Girls, and then Made in Dagenham, and then the two American films. Haven't seen anything from him recently, but I'm sure it would be delightful if Nigel Cole released another film. And this movie, interesting enough, was the inspiration for a Martin Clunes television series called Doc Martin. Somehow, I'm not sure exactly how it inspired it, but that show's gone on now for 10 seasons, including movies. And as of 2023, last year, it released its latest season. So it's still rolling. So from Saving Grace in 2000 to Doc Martin, and now from the last 6-8 years, damn, that is quite the legacy. Last up is a total geek out on my part. I don't know if this is going to go broad, but in my ever-growing quest to own every single piece of media Kevin Smith related, I bought Cop Out on combo Blu-ray DVD. This one stars Bruce Willis and Tracy Morgan, Sean William Scott, Adam.
Hey, Hitchcock, what? Let me give you a hand with this, man. There you go. Cardi, dig!
Adam Brody. Lots of people in this movie. Kevin Pollak. This is actually the source of, I think, a large part of Kevin Smith's movie making PTSD, just in his dealings with Bruce Willis at the time. The two were like oil and water, and I think it's still something that haunts Kev to this day. Sadly, Bruce is in declining health, has retired due to aphasia and increasing dementia and everything. So sadly, I don't think it's something, it's a hurt that will ever get reconciled, which is sad, because you like to see those full circle moments and things kind of come together. But I mean, on the other flip side of that, Kevin Smith said that working with Tracy Morgan was a freaking delight. And I mean, honestly, watching 30 Rock, watching all the Saturday Night Live that I have, Tracy Morgan's a delight anyways, like even just watching him on screen. So I can only imagine that dealing with him in person would be a delight. It'd be a weird, probably a lot of weird moments. And like, did he just say that? But I could only see it as being a delight. This movie also marked a first in Kevin Smith's career, because it was the first film that he directed that he hadn't actually written. It was written by a pair of other writers, and a screenplay that had been floating around for a bit. Clearly something that Kev would not do again, because I believe everything he's done since he's written himself. So it's an experiment that just did not exactly work out. And we have to say that Zack and Miri is the big reason why he wanted to make a change, because he put his heart and soul in Zack and Miri and it flopped. It shouldn't have flopped, but it did. And so for him to go off the beaten path and do something different is pretty great. As far as like wanting something to separate yourself in your career, I think it's very great. But the film, the film on the other hand, isn't great. It's got its moments for sure, but it just feels like it's lacking a bit of sauce almost consistently throughout. And that's probably down to the point that Kevin Smith doesn't have the full tether that he usually does on what he's filming and what he's trying to say, and the fact that him and his lead star were not getting along, and to a point where Bruce Willis wouldn't even listen to anything that Kevin had to say on set. So that definitely had something to do with it. But I do like how this film feels like it would have been easily made in the 80s. And if it was made in the 80s with that scope, it probably would have been a more memorable film, I think. The score is a big reason why I think this film kind of fits in that microcosm. It's because he got a guy to come out of retirement to do an 80s style score, and that's Harold Faltermeyer. He was the guy that did the score for Beverly Hills Cop. He did it for Fletch. He did it for Top Gun. Like this, he was like the guy of the time. So Kev himself got the guy to come out of retirement so he could score this film. And I really do like the score to this movie. Like it has that feel of what made me love movies in the 80s. And I really feel like that's what Kev was going for. Unfortunately, it's just the movie around it just does not add up to anything great. All right, so that is it this week for What the Hell Should I Watch? I really don't have anything to tease for next week, because I don't even have anything in theaters in Penticton here that I can go check out to bring as my number one movie for the next week. So next week is going to be a mystery bag week.
Are you crazy? We'll take the boat.
No, not so fast, Lois. A boat's a boat, but the mystery box could be anything. It could even be a boat.
I will say that now on VOD, before I head out, you can check Werner Herzog Radical Dreamer out. It's a movie I reviewed a few weeks back that was playing in limited release, but now it is on VOD. I implore film fans to go find this documentary about one of the greatest and most idiosyncratic directors out there, and get into the madness that is Werner Herzog. But thank you everybody for checking out this episode this week. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube page if you haven't already. Just Steve Stebbing. You can search in YouTube. You can find my website, stevestebbing.ca. I'm also on the Shiftheads group with Shane Hewitt, the Facebook group, as well as the website, shiftheads.ca. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Letterboxd, at the Stevel Dead. Also, search my name on Facebook and you'll find my fan page there as well. Thank you, everybody, for checking it out this week. Share it with your friends if you would like, please. And we'll catch you next week.